in the history of salvation. It is not only he spoke at length on this, about the value, the importance of consecration to Mary, which is I think so. That's a tremendous help if you take the initiative to call upon Mary. This does not mean that if you don't call her, she will do nothing, but it's easier for her, easier job, if you ask her to do it, you see. Because in the case of a very strong Protestant who would not accept to ask Mary to do something for him. Well, Mary is good and merciful. I think she still does something with respect to that kind of person, but it's a more difficult job, and I think that person receives less benefits. Now, what could we say, I would say from a concrete point of view, about Mary's queenship? I would suggest a few points. I do not pretend to be exhaustive. A first point would be help in the understanding of the Word of God, and also in keeping the Word of God. Luke twice mentions Mary keeping the Word of God, meditating it in her heart. And nobody received the Word of God with greater love than she did. So she helps us to have a great love for the Word of God and to keep it so that it may bear fruit in our life. A second point, in silent prayer. It was a point quite dear to Father Philip, as a matter of fact. In the rule of life of the brothers, in the passage on silent prayer, the rule of life says that it quotes St. Thomas Aquinas' commentary on the wedding at Cana. St. Thomas interpreting Cana as a symbol of the mystical union between Christ and the Church, and so Christ and our souls. And St. Thomas says, at this mystical marriage, the mother of Jesus is always invited. She serves as kind of intermediary between Christ and us. So, silent prayer. Better to spend our times of silent prayer close to her, especially asking her, for example, to pacify our imagination, because we don't have full control over the imagination. A third point I would suggest, help in temptations. It is well known, and many saints spoke about it, that the devil is afraid of Mary, very much. And so when in temptations we call her for help, it is a tremendous help, yes, to be victorious in temptation. You see, a mother is a living milieu of life for the child, a favorable milieu for the growth of the child. That's exactly what Mary does with respect to us, but all the more if we ask her to do it. I am always impressed by the transformation of John. Compare John in the Synoptic Gospels and John in the fourth Gospel. John in the Synoptic Gospel, it is the young John, young disciple, son of thunder, and a little bit tough. Remember Luke 10, when Jesus was not allowed to be received in a Samaritan village because he was a Jew. Then James and John suggested very nicely that they would summon the fire from heaven to come down and consume that Samaritan village. Great idea. That's exactly what Elijah did. Twice, he ordered the fire to come down from heaven and consume 50 soldiers. Elijah. So I guess James and John were sure that Jesus would find a great idea. That was not quite the case. They were corrected. When you read the fourth gospel, it is the old John at the end of his life. So, about 60, 70 years after the events. He has been much sanctified. He's much meeker than he was. So these are a few points, but I am sure there are others. And Father Nathan certainly will develop other points. Any question or suggestion?
I just have one question. When it comes to the Assumption of Mary, what's like maybe one concrete way that has meaning in your life, Father, or maybe that you would suggest it should have meaning in my life, like the Assumption of Mary specifically. I think my question's coming from because growing up, like I always heard of these teachings about Mary, Assumption, like, coronation, like, and they just seem very disconnected and random. Over the years, I'm understanding more about how it all fits
But
together.
as John Paul II said, the Assumption helps her to be more, to have more efficiency in her divine motherhood with respect to us. And there's a little sign of it. It is the gospel chosen for the Assumption. Before the liturgical reform of Vatican II, it was, I think, that woman saying in the crowd, "Oh, blessed the bosom who bore you," and so on. And Jesus replying, "Blessed rather those who receive the word of God and believe in it," and so on. But after Vatican II, the gospel of the Assumption is the visitation. And I find it suggesting, you see. Mary, glorified in heaven, is not forgetting the earth. If Teresa of the Child Jesus could say, "I will spend my heaven doing good on earth, and I shall not rest before the entrance of the last saint of the Father," it's worth deepening, you see. Yeah. Well, it is said by John Paul II, now she can practice with greater efficiency her spiritual motherhood with respect to those who reach the last hour of their life.
So that's connecting Mary's Assumption, her flesh being in heaven, to somehow helping us in a particular way at the moment of death.
Yes, I think so.
Why? Why is that?
Because she had the experience.
Well, but so do all the saints who die.
Yeah, but aren't you like not really like fully? I mean, until the body rises, like you're not really fully complete even in heaven. So.
I think you are fully in
Well, yeah,
heaven,
but not like.
you're not united. I don't know.
You mean the
It's
other
another
saints?
question.
Yeah, like it seems like for her to like share in that, there would have to be like that complete unity of her body and spirit somehow.
Well, another element that I remember from the liturgy of the Assumption is that it's a great sign of hope for us also. To know, and that was kind of the I guess when you're talking about how Mary, as sort of the fulfillment in Mary of what the church is waiting for. So Mary, in a certain way, by her Assumption, enlivens our hope for the end. It's not like Jesus is the only one, but there's already this first fruits of the resurrection in heaven in Mary. So that should give us more hope.
What about, you hear a lot about Mary as a multiplier of graces.
Multiplier.
Multiplier of graces. I've heard that times. I don't know, would that relate to the queenship, or being an intercessory?
Multiplier.
Yeah, like,
I never heard that expression.
yeah, it's like a, I'm trying to think of the context, but that she can take, by going through Mary to Jesus, it makes your merits or your, I don't know, more efficacious or something. It makes them, like she knows as the mother, she knows, and being the mother of Jesus, she knows what to take to him specifically, versus you just throwing out a bunch of prayers and saying, oh, all these things I need, Mary, help me with all these things. Can she specifically take something and make it more powerful by sifting through that and just taking him what's needed at the time, versus...
Yes, I suppose, but I will not speak of multiplier.
Give me a double portion of your spirit.
No, something which is still much discussed, you may have heard a little bit about it, is the hypothesis of a new dogma, Mary, mediatrix of all graces. Now, I had a student this year who wrote his final paper on this, and I find it quite interesting. Jean-Louis Marie from the Philippines. Very fond of Mariology. And I was surprised to see that the doctrine has been affirmed by several popes explicitly, even though not proclaimed as a dogma of faith, but it is said very clearly by several of them. Until you reach Vatican II, and after Vatican II, it is no longer mentioned.
They're embarrassed.
Or almost embarrassed, yes. And when John Paul II consulted theologians, what do you think of proclaiming a new dogma, Mary, mediatrix of all graces? Their advice was no. And so John Paul II did not proclaim the dogma. Will the dogma be proclaimed one day? That's possible, I don't know. But you see, in order for dogma to be proclaimed, you need either a necessity because of a serious doctrinal error, as it happened for the first dogmas of faith, or you need to have a maturity in doctrine and a large, wide consensus. If people don't agree, you see, it shows that that's not the right time to do that.
Thank you, Father.
Yes, thank you very